In this part, you are going to choose an ActionScript file 3.0. In the Campus Share Drive, there is an image of a cactus flower, although you can do this with any kind of image. You just have to import it to the stage, and then we have to resize it. Make sure that you have the proportions locked, and you can make the width 550 so that it fits. And then you might have to position it a little bit just to make sure that it sits on the stage where you want it. Okay. So if you don't like this particular flower, you can definitely choose a different one. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and name this layer flower, and I'm going to lock it. And then I'm going to create a new layer, and this new layer is going to be called outline. And on the outline layer, we're going to use the pencil tool with black stroke and smooth, a smooth style, or pencil mode rather. And we are simply going to, and I'm going to start here more or less in the middle. I am going to, oops, let me do one more thing. I'm going to change the stroke size to 2. And then I'm going to put nice, gentle, small strokes, and you notice that mine are not perfectly around the edge of the flower or the petal, and that's okay. You do want to make sure that it gets close, otherwise it's going to be way off. But basically we are outlining the petals of this flower, okay? And yes, there are a lot of them, which is why I'm going to tell you that what you probably want to do at this point is go ahead and pause my video, and when you come back, I will also be done. And that way you can kind of compare and make sure that you have enough outlines on this to get it to work. So if you look, I didn't worry about the little like thorns from the side of the leaves or petals. I just did straight lines. And one of the best ways for you to check to see that you have a sufficient amount of lines is simply to hide the photo layer under it so that you can check it. And I'm looking at it and I think that I have all I need. So now I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to click on that keyframe on the outline layer, and you notice how it selects all of those lines. Well, these lines, first off, you drew in shape mode, or object, not in object drawing mode. Okay, so you got the dots on them. Okay, so you need, and if you see blue lines, you need to just do modify, break apart right here, which is a Control B. Okay, but what we're going to do now, these are actually strokes. We need them to be a fill. So we're going to go to modify, shape, and we're going to convert these lines to fills. Now when we do that, some of them thin out a little bit, and a couple of them actually disappeared. So I can see that this one here disappeared on mine, and you may be to where none of yours do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this one again and see if I select it, and I'm going to have to use my shift key to select the other part. If I do convert lines to fills again, that time it stayed. So now I'm going to select all of the lines again, or fills now, and I'm going to go back to modify shape, but this time I'm going to do expand fill. And I'm going to expand it by 1 pixel. It's just going to make everything a little bit thicker. Okay, and I actually just saw one more part that I want to go ahead and fix or add to, and it's right here. And at this point I should be done. Modify shape, convert, and then expand. Okay, so now that it's expanded, I want to go ahead and create a third layer. On this third layer, I'm going to call it gradient. And I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit so that I can see the bottom of the stage. And I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I need no stroke, and I need to use this gradient as the fill. I am going to draw this one in object drawing mode, and I'm simply going to draw this rectangle at the very bottom. And this is what it's going to look like at the beginning. Well, if I go to my color panel, I can look here and I can see that gradient. I do want white on the left, but I want to slide this little box to the middle and change it to a light gray. And then I need to click below it to add another box of white. So it's going to be white, gray, white. Then I need to go to my gradient transform tool, and notice that now there's a little circle over here. I want to use that circle and I want to rotate it to where it is directly above it. And then I may have to rotate it a little bit more because it's not quite straight. There it is. And then I'm going to drag this down, and that's going to make that gradient fit in that rectangle. Just like that. You should see white on top and bottom, and then gray in the middle. And I'm going to bump that down to where it is just below the stage. Then I'm going to convert that to a symbol, modify, convert to symbol, and I'm just going to call it bar, and it can be a graphic. And then I'm going to, on all three layers, I'm going to go ahead and insert frame with an F5. That way all three layers extend to 100 frames. Now on that gradient, I can put in a motion tween. Whoops, sorry, I had 2 layers selected. I didn't want 2 layers selected. Okay. Just the gradient layer you're putting on the motion tween. And then put your keyframe or your playhead over frame 100, and we're simply going to move this up to where it sits up off the top of the stage. Just like that. Okay, so this is where it's moving. Okay, I'm going to move the gradient below the outline layer, and then I'm going to right click on the outline layer, and I'm going to choose mask. And what it's doing is it is going to use those fills, those lines, to mask the gradient. So that little bar is the only places you're going to see it is going to be where those lines were. So watch, and then you can see the kind of glow effect that it makes. Okay, so now we're going to save as into your Animate folder, your period, your last name, and the name of it is Outline Mask. And hit save. And then you want to go to Control Test so that it produces a Swift file, and you can see how it works there. And then there's your file that you're going to upload to your canvas. Just so that you know, if you unlock these layers, it basically nullifies that. And if you wanted to, you could reposition. So if you wanted that gradient to move in at, I don't know, a different angle, I'm going to go to get my free transform tool on it. I could rotate it and have it start. I may have to zoom out a little bit more to make sure it's big enough. Hang on. 50. I'm going to go ahead and expand it a little bit more. There we go. And so on 1, it's coming down here, and then on 100, I can move it up here. And now I want to test it to make sure it's covering everything the way it should. Yep. And so then I can lock those layers again to put that mask in, and you can have it coming from a different direction. So that's up to you as to whether you keep the original one or you move it and change the direction of the glow effect.